Hi guys, in this video I'm going to talk to you a little bit about anxiety and boundaries. So what is anxiety and why is there a massive correlation between anxiety and a lack of boundaries? Well, if we look at it from this perspective, anxiety is basically a fight or flight response, letting us know when something is not right. And this can come up in many different ways and take place across many forms. But one of the ways it will come up is if our boundaries are violated. So I want you to imagine, like hundreds of thousands of years ago, our brain was basically wired to let us know when there's some kind of threat to our survival. So let's say somebody came onto your land and they came into your space and they took some of your food. Well, that's going to possibly pose a potential threat to your survival. So you're going to have this instinctive, deep biologically programmed fight or flight response. Now, this aspect of our brain is still alive and well, but now this is just taking place across when boundaries are happening to be violated in a variety of different forms. So when we have a boundary violated, it's going to produce anxiety, okay? Now, one of the problems here and one of the reasons we have difficulty making this connection and solving this problem is often we don't even know what our own boundaries really are. So we get this anxiety response produced, but we don't necessarily have a conscious awareness as to what boundaries violated or what's going on. And so this requires a lot of introspection. And sometimes you can think of things like this. You know, you might say yes to a social event when you really need to spend time alone. And that yes to somebody else is actually a no to yourself. And you've just violated one of your own boundaries to gain approval or to not upset anybody or to gain favor in some form. And this happens a lot in many different ways across all 7 areas of our life. We can violate our own boundaries in career, in the financial element of our life, like sometimes we spend money on other people when we actually need to be saving for ourselves, or we spend money on things that we think we should be spending money on to please or impress somebody, and that can actually be an intrinsic boundary violation when maybe at a deeper level we truly want to save or invest, right? We can violate our own boundaries spiritually by maybe doing something that's against what we spiritually or morally believe is right for us. We can violate our own boundaries mentally, emotionally, physically, right? Maybe physically going further with somebody than you feel comfortable or safe doing, or having a conversation that makes you feel uncomfortable about some kind of physical element. We can actually just violate our boundaries physically as well by, you know, maybe we don't really want to give somebody a hug, or we don't want to be touched affectionately at a certain time. And we are, and we just sort of let it happen. There can be so many different ways. But our boundaries begin with us first, and we have to have conscious awareness to know what they are so we can recognize at a conscious level when they are violated, so we can speak up, express, set a boundary, and curb that anxiety-based response, that fight or flight mechanism. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go through the 7 areas of life, and they are career, mental, emotional, physical, oh my God. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go through the 7 areas of life. They are career, financial, mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and relationships. And I want you to ask yourself, what boundaries do I need in each of these areas that I'm not setting or not speaking up for? And take some time to just sort of check that out, reflect, introspect in those areas, and then write out what the boundaries are for you that you need to set. And remember, boundaries can be things that you're letting happen that you don't want to. So those can be incoming boundary violations, or they can be things that are almost outgoing boundary violations where they're things you want to do or have, and you're not allowing yourself to. So you're violating your own boundary by not doing anything. This can be you have a hard boundary that you need a raise. You've been working so hard in your company and you just don't allow yourself or give yourself permission to ask. So by not doing that, you violate your own boundary for what you feel is right for you as well. Okay, so check that out, go through it, see what comes up for you, and then take the time to action those boundaries and start incrementally exposing yourself to setting them so that you can curb that anxiety and see beautiful results in your life.